So Chris, this week I'm actually saying so Chris this week so I don't get emails about not saying so Chris this week. Apparently last week I said Chris this week and that upset some people. So I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
It's like the comfort food of podcasts. You need to hear the phrase to end your week on a Friday.
Yeah, it really satisfies people apparently. So we have some launches, some things to discuss that are very exciting. We have a new image model from Google, Nano Banana 2, combining Pro capabilities with lightning fast speed. And the big takeaways really from this new Nano Banana 2 launch are the fact that it's about 50% cheaper, which is a huge improvement, and it is a lot faster because it's using the underlying Flash model now to produce the images. So you, according to them, you're getting Pro capabilities, lightning fast speed, and about half the price. But when you get up to the 4K images, I think the discount's only like 25%. So it's not as good, but it's still pretty impressive. And I think that the initial reaction so far that I've seen to this image model is people are not that overwhelmed like they were about the first ever release of Nano Banana. But I think it's just because the bar is so high with the Nano Banana series of image generation models from Google that I don't know, it's like hard to top it. But to me, the problems were speed and price. And it seems like they've made huge progress towards those two things.
Yes, I don't know so much about the speed though. Like if you've had a different experience to me where it's actually faster, but for me, it seems about the same speed as regular Nano Banana Pro.
I think it's probably because of demand right now. When I first started using it earlier today, it was a lot faster. And it has subsequently slowed up a fair bit. So I suspect it's just like a demand thing right now. But I do personally notice it being a lot faster, especially on like higher resolution images. Like previously, if you're doing like a 4K image generation, it was awfully slow that I would just like forget about what I was working on. And it also means like iterations are just quite painful. But I've noticed now it's not as bad. But yeah, I think it's just a demand problem right now, more than anything.
Yeah, so in theory, it's faster, but we've just got to wait for them to catch up capacity-wise. I've made quite a few images with it, and it's pretty good at instruction following. Like, it seems to only ignore your instructions when it doesn't really, like, want to do the image that you're making, right? Like, I've tried my usual controversial stuff, and the safety filters seem pretty strong. But in terms of, like, I'm getting it to do kind of random stuff, like having a little character come in from the side with a cartoonish quote on a photorealistic image with a text banner at the top. And it's able to do all of those things just fine. The only thing I've noticed is that the actual photo bits of it they look a bit composited, like they look a bit like the old Looney Tunes scenes where it's like a cardboard cutout shoved on top of another image. Like, you know, the person looks like a photo of the person, though the background looks like a different image. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, but this was a problem in Nano Banana Pro as well, where sometimes it makes really like poor Photoshop edits, like almost like, you know, I went into Photoshop and tried to cut my head onto an image, and you've really got to, like, I find each week when we make the podcast thumbnail, and a lot of people jokingly see our thumbnails as like an image benchmark of how good the image models are getting now, because our thumbnails have improved dramatically since the beginning. And what people don't see behind the scenes is when I generate them, sometimes I can do like 10 generations for them, just yelling at it, being like, no, make it look more realistic, you know, do this, do that. And because Nano Banana Pro was quite slow, it took me like a fair amount of time to get it right. But I ultimately think that sometimes it just does that and you've got to yell at it. Similar to all Google models, I think now it has that sort of like adherence to a certain style or path in its response. And if you don't yell at it and try and take it off that path, then you kind of get nowhere. Sometimes I just start again, honestly, with it and go again. And also I think what's helpful is just doing 10, not 10, but like 4 variants, say up front, like getting it to make 4 different copies of whatever you're trying to make instead of a single one. And sometimes one of them out of 4 will be good enough.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think that it's definitely one of those technologies that can get you like 90% of the way, but then the last 10% can be incredibly frustrating. Like I've worked on diagrams with it, and it's like there's one little piece of the diagram it just simply cannot get right no matter what you try. And I've done like 50 iterations to try and get around that. I'm curious if this new version is able to overcome that kind of thing. And on that, one interesting thing I think to note about these models and the prompting is you did a slide generation using it that turned out brilliantly. And I kind of wonder if a lot of it is just prompting. Like if your prompts are specific enough about what you're going for, it's able to get that accuracy up front better.
So here's some interesting things I have noticed from using these models pretty extensively. And interestingly, I've built this into the new version of Sim Theory because I think it's so powerful. So here's an image I created of us in bed with Dario and Sam Altman. I love how it's just more than happy to oblige with this prompt. No problems at all. But yeah, if you do anything with like a female, it's like, oh no. But as long as it's all males, you're sweet. But yeah, so like one of the things I've noticed is if you mark up your images, so like if I circle myself in this particular image and then add the annotation to the context and say like, like paint a clown face onto this person, right? That will be way more accurate in the change. So where you draw on the image and annotate it, it's like way more performant. And I'll run this example and I'll show you the result in a moment.
Let's see how fast it is. It's kind of a good scenario when you're live recording.
Yeah. So we will see how fast it is. But likewise on slides. So
so you can actually annotate the slide and say change this part only
to
what I want.
So I'll show you on this one. So annotate as well. I put a little square here and said put a portrait of Sundar. And I mean, quite honestly, if I go back and like redo it, like it sort of looks like him. It's not like fully accurate, but it did it exactly where I put it, right?
In the right spot. Yeah, that's very interesting.
So for slide editing, I think it's super good, but it does rely, I've noticed, and it kind of makes sense. Like for prompt adherence, like if you want to get rid of this, say, and you circle it, and then say like get rid of this image, we'll check back in on this as well, but it tends to work really well. I mean, you're right about slow speed, so it's still editing the clown face.
Yeah, I mean,
on me.
the reason I knew is I've been using it all morning, and to be honest, if it was actually fast like they said, I'd be going wild with it. But after a while, you're like, I couldn't be bothered waiting anymore.
It was though. It slowed up. It's because we just added it, and it only came out like I added it like about a minute after I saw the tweet. Like it was like 3 minutes old, and I added it, and at the time it was super fast. But clearly, they're just getting absolutely smashed by it now.
It makes sense. All the different podcast hosts experimenting with it. The thing you also mentioned is that they talked about the price. And my comment to you was, I didn't even realize the first one cost that much. Like it didn't seem like the cost was so burdensome. It would stop you from, say, using it for your job or whatever. Wow, it did that well.
But look, so here's the circle to show you. I know most people listen, so not very thrilling, but I put a red circle,
the best source material
around my face, and then said, paint a clown face onto it. And I mean, it doesn't look that realistic, but it does work.
I got to try this. I got to try this annotation thing. I didn't even realize you could do that. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think it works particularly well. Now let's check back in with our getting rid of that image and look at this. I mean, it just wiped it out on this slide. So if I undo this now, the change. Oops, selected redo. But yeah, if I see here it is. Can you see that?
Yeah.
And then I'll go redo, and then look, perfectly gone. Everything else the same. Like unbelievable. It's sort of, if these models go the way that I think they'll go, like they get way faster, way cheaper, all of a sudden, I mean, I know like Canva talks about this thing called last mile design. And I think you just said it before, where like 95% of the work now is so easy and ridiculously easy in most cases. Like you can get 95% of the way there. But that last 5%, like if they can come out with an image model like this that understands layers somehow, And then you can take that and take it into something like a Canva and play around with the layers and sort of finalize it. I think all of a sudden these like, it does what it's sort of done to coding with AI, where it's like, anyone's a great designer now if they have decent taste.
I think though that the layer thing, and we know there's all the tools like Segment Anywhere and the things like, we know they can sort of already do that, right? And I think that it's actually sort of beyond just like, okay, get it into Canva and edit the layers. To me, it's more like if the AI can recognize the layers, then you can do targeted editing. So one of the things that I've noticed is, say I'm building a presentation because I want to talk about the technical implementation of some software architecture. Everything's great, right? But one of my slides has the wrong logo on it for some reason. Now, it sounds easy, but sometimes with the models, you simply cannot get it to replace the logo. That's before I knew about this annotation thing, right? But I couldn't do it. And so then what am I going to do? I don't have photo editing stuff. I've got to go into like Paint or like screenshot over it or mask it or do some like really dodgy thing. So I go from having what could be, a presentation that looks like I've spent a month preparing it. It's absolutely brilliant, to looking like, oh, this is just AI. This is just like amateurish garbage and I shouldn't pay attention to any of it. Like, it completely shatters the illusion when there's like small defects in what you're producing. So overcoming that last mile, as Canva calls it, I think is a very, very critical thing.
But the last mile is sort of true in a lot of AI use cases. Like if you look at Tesla full self-driving right now, they are working on the last mile problem with full self-driving and these like...
Literally.
Truly, yeah. And then you've got, like with coding models, same thing. Like most people get into something like Claude Code or start vibe coding something and they get 95% of the way there. And it turns out the last 5% is the killer, like it always was in a software project. You just get there a lot quicker. And so I think a lot of it is solving those problems now more than anything. But just to go back to how good it is, I mean, look at this. So we did the horse egg experiment. I got it to come up with a magazine cover of Horse and Hound, with a woman in like an elegant bikini, sort of Horse and Hound style, I guess. And it says the unbelievable
like or something.
The unbelievable discovery. Horse eggs are here. First fowl hatched in Kentucky. Top 10 dressage tips for spring. But then I saw the example in their blog post about a flat lay infographic depicting the water cycle. And I thought, wow, I've never seen it create anything that good. I'm going to try this prompt. It took me 2 goes, but check this out. So this is the life cycle, allegedly, of the horse egg cycle, a complete guide. And it's for those listening, it's a cardboard cutout. It looks like it was done by hand, showing a gestation period of 6 to 8 weeks for a horse egg, a nesting phase, and it's got tiny bits of hay like stuck onto this like mood board.
Step 2 is build your nest.
Yeah. Oh, well, no, that's step 3. Step 2 is hormonal surge. You have to take folic acid and some drug called...
Of course.
Some drug,
that's how you turn it into a horse.
And some drug called equestrian. And then 4 is the laying. And it's got like, I don't know how to even describe it, but that fluffy, like cloud-like material, cotton buds or something like that.
Cotton wool, I think.
Cotton wool, yeah. I'm very out of touch with that stuff. And then step 5, incubation, 45 days. It shows the outer shell, the yolk sac, the embryonic fowl. And then the last is hatching. And anyway, it's unbelievable. I'll put a link in the description below to this image.
I dare you to print it out and put it up at your kid's school on the wall.
Yeah, it's like a real thing. So it can do some amazing stuff. Here's my honest opinion. I don't think you're sacrificing anything in terms of like fidelity or its ability to create things. The only thing I have noticed, and I'll show you one more example, is, and this is a problem with all image models, right, is how it degrades over time. So check this out. This is now us sitting having coffee in San Francisco. You don't look like you. You look a bit scary. I am missing eyeballs for some reason.
Okay.
And then I'm like, can you put a dinosaur? in the background terrorizing everyone, and then there's people running away that have noticed.
That looks like quite a nice day out. I wouldn't mind doing that.
Yeah, with the dinosaur or
doesn't matter.
So yeah, it looks good. And then I annotated and said, "Can you put a gold necklace around me?" And it did it perfectly and retained. You cannot tell the difference when you annotate. It's amazing. It really just adds to it. I don't know why I didn't notice this earlier. Then I'm like, "Can you put Taylor Swift with us as well at the table?" And it looks totally fake. It's one of those cheap edits like we were talking about earlier. And yeah, so anyway, I guess what I'm saying is it still has the problem of like the character degrading compared to Nano Banana Pro. Like, I don't think you're getting anything more by going to Nano Banana Pro. Like, maybe it's slightly better at instruction following, but I think for the cost factor and hopefully speed once they get the servers warmed up a little bit more, it's worth it.
If it could
every
do
dollar.
that quality at a much faster speed, I think there is an advantage in it because you can just iterate that much quicker. I'd love that.
So one of the problems though that this really solves is this idea of like when I built this slide maker originally, I was really worried because I'm like, oh, if you have like a 20 slide deck and you make like 10 iterations on that, that's going to cost the user like about $12 to $15 in tokens to, make the slide deck. But that cost now goes down to about, a bit under $5. And some people that are cheap would choke on that and be like, I'll just do it myself. But to me, like personally, once you put your brand guidelines as a skill into the system and then ask it to make a deck, you don't really need that many iterations anymore. Generally, it's good enough. And it creates like speaker notes, all the slides, fully on brand. It can do some research first. So I'm willing to pay like a couple of dollars to avoid all that work myself. Like that's a huge time saving. It would have taken me probably 2 hours of my time, maybe 3, to put together the deck, like put charts in it, all this kind of stuff. Now I can do it in a couple of minutes.
And I agree with you. I must say, the price difference when you read it out to me in terms of cents didn't sound that significant. But when you're talking about that, there is a big difference between it costing $5 and $12 to do a task like that, I think, because you're far more likely to reach to it as a starting point if you're like, oh, well, even if it is just a starting point, that's actually good value for money.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll mention is on the text to image leaderboard, Nano Banana 2, the Flash model, is now number 1 on there. And number 2, weirdly, is GPT Image 1.5, which just I think is embarrassing because it's a terrible model. And number 3 is Nano Banana Pro. I don't really understand or trust these ratings seeing GPT Image 1.5 so high. Like I just wouldn't, it wouldn't be in my top 3. But you can see the price. It's $67 for 1,000 images based on the way they test versus $134 per 1,000 images. So that's a dramatic price decrease, and I think we're only going to see them go down in the future. But
what's amazing is like in every other area, the models are usually pretty close, right? But when it comes to image generation, once Nano Banana came out, none of the others were even touching it. Like they're not even close. Like if you're a company like Ideogram, what are you doing all day? Like you're sort of like, hey, this was your whole thing. And they've come out and beaten you for like 6 months and you haven't even got an answer for that.
Yeah. And I mean, the other crazy thing is for Flux 2 Max now, it's actually more expensive than Nano Banana 2. So it's like they don't even have a price. Like a cheaper price thing anymore.
I saw one of my sons using Ideogram the other day for some school thing and I was just disgusted and sickened. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, get rid of that now and switch to Nano Banana. And like it actually changed. He was working on an assignment or something. He's like, oh, this actually works now. It actually is doing what I asked it to do. Like the difference is so striking between them.
So interestingly too, the Grok image Imagine image is the cheapest. Like Grok is just the cheapest on everything. $20 per 1,000 images. Seedream 4, which is also, I think, a really good image model, but it just doesn't have good distribution, is $30 per 1,000. So there are cheaper options out there that are pretty comparable. But honestly, if you're working with like slide decks or text or infographics, all the actual like I need to get real work done stuff, that's when Google is winning.
I must say the big appealing thing for me about the Nano Banana right from the start was legibility of text, its ability to produce diagrams, charts, and other work-related stuff, and just its adherence to prompt. Generally speaking, it will do what you want until you get to that last 10%.
It's really the model now, like the go-to model, as you say, for images and just everything for me, even charts. Like, it's great at charts. It's better at charts than Code Interpreter is, which is crazy to me.
Which is working with the literal data.
Yeah. And this is just imagining the data into like a diffusion thing. So it's quite incredible.
I love the technical knowledge on this podcast has gone from like reading papers and understanding it to like diffusion thing.
Diffusion thing. Well, I mean, who cares? At this point, I don't need to know anything. I don't even need to know how to code anymore. I'm just like, please, do it now, please.
It's very, this is an aside, of course, but I actually had that comment for you last night. I was working on some pretty heavy hitting features. And then I realized I didn't even have my code editor open. I don't actually even look. I haven't even looked at the code it's producing at all. I don't need to know anymore. I can test it and see the results of it and maybe review it at the end, but I didn't even have VS Code open.
It's like siphoning data out to some third party in the background.
It's like sinning. I feel like I'm going to, like in the retribution or something, pay for that. It's like you didn't even look.
I must admit, I still like anything that's like a critical system operation where I'm worried about data leakage or something like that. I'm still 100% reviewing, and I'm scared not to. But I never find fault outside of it just embellishing and doing like way too much more than I asked, which I think the Anthropic models seem to suffer a lot more from than, say, a Codex model. Codex definitely seems to do bare minimum as efficiently as possible and be mean to you about it. Whereas the Anthropic models seem to just sometimes, get a bit carried away.
It's a damn shame that Codex 5.3 just isn't available to API users yet. I'm really genuinely excited about that.
Yeah, me too. I think a lot of people are upset it's not out yet. And I was actually searching and reading about it before the show, and there's a lot of people upset. And OpenAI are coming out in defense and saying it'll be available soon, but due to security reasons, we're trying to tweak it so it doesn't
take over the world.
Bio warfare or something. Anyway, but I did want to quickly touch on, just while we're on Google at the start of the episode, 25 minutes in, that we got an interesting email, I think yesterday or today, from Google.
Like early hours this morning.
So Gemini-3 is discontinued, or being discontinued. And
in like 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks, 11 days.
So they've just completely abandoned that, which kind of makes sense now they've got 3.1.
It's probably one of the worst models ever created, I think, Gemini-3.
The fall off from Gemini 2.5 Pro to Gemini 3 needs to be studied. Also, the hype when Gemini 3 launched. What was that? What was that? Like, it did seem good for like the first week or two, and then like, were we just all starved of model releases so much that we got carried away?
I think what it was on the back of Google just absolutely dominating for months. Remember, like we were playing around with Polymarket and Google was just like flatline at the top of the graph. Just unshakable, undeniable leader. And so I think the assumption was, well, 3 is higher than 2.5, right? So it must be better. And at least the same, and then some on top of that. But then the reality of day-to-day use was you're like, I can't even use it. Like, it is unusable. Like, if you just remember in the past, we've always said, like, if you just left me alone with like GPT-4 or GPT-4o or one of the, middle school models, I could probably do most of the work I do now, right? Because of the tooling and wrappers around it. I would argue with Gemini 3, you can't, because it'll literally forget context within the same cycle. Like, it's in the prompt and it's forgotten what it's actually doing within that iteration. Like, it's actually worse than some of the earlier models. Like, I'd rather the original Kimi K2 than I would Gemini 3.
Yeah, I just don't understand what happened though, because I do recall, and if I was a better editor, I'd cut in clips from our initial reactions to Gemini 3. I know we did think about we talked about the initial problems around the path, like, its fixation down a singular path and like its tool calling wasn't improved. But in the like one-shot demo, like fanboy hype cycle, it was just one-shotting a lot of cool, like, let's be honest, like, what is it? 3D.js? What's the library we all use? I forget the name of it now.
3JS. Yeah.
3JS,
but,
yeah. Like, it was just really good at that stuff.
Yeah, and actually, I think you may have hit on what the actual issue was, because I do remember our criticism of it at the time. We're like, as a single shot copy-paste model where you're taking that 10, 15 minutes to build up your context and giving it everything, it was solving your problems. And I think that's what was so amazing about it. It also could do a lot of output. So you could, and I was asking it to rewrite entire files. So I'm just like, here's the files that are relevant. Here's what I want to do. It would rewrite the entire thing. Or if you're working on a document or spreadsheet or something, it could do that. But our weaknesses that we listed for it at the time was chain tool calls. It wasn't good at that sort of agentic, early agentic tool looping thing. That was its weakness, right? So if you think about it, almost certainly what they tried to tweak with Gemini-3 and beyond was the tool calling loop. And that's obviously taken away what was brilliant about it before on one hand, and also screwed up that part as well. I think that's probably what occurred there. I
mean, like, to me, one of the breakthroughs was the async tool calling with the models, right? Like, I think it was like Claude Sonnet 3.7, I want to say, was the first model that could do async tool calling, I think.
You mean like parallel tool calling, right?
Yeah, parallel. And when that happened, I do recall, or I may or may not have said, but at least at the launch of Gemini-3, we kept talking about a lot of these models that feels like need to be re-architected for this agentic loop and internal clock that these other models feel like they have. And it just didn't feel like Gemini-3 had an internal clock. Like, it was almost dead on arrival, a model that was catching up for a time that had now passed.
Yeah, or just had simply been architected in a different way and they're trying to retrofit that into it rather than do a fresh start.
But anyway, it's interesting reading the timeline here. So it launched November 18, 2025. I thought it had been around longer, but clearly not. And it scored really well on LM Arena at the start. But within weeks, developer forums lit up with complaints. Gemini-3 is a major downgrade. It became a top thread on the Google AI Developers Forum, with users reporting coding regressions, hallucinations, and over-censored outputs versus Gemini 2.5 Pro after just 1 month. A community review titled Gemini-3 Review After 1 Month, inconsistent at best or at worst compared to Gemini 2.5 Pro. So I think we felt the same very early on, like that it was a downgrade, not an upgrade.
Yeah, and I mean, they to their credit, it said preview in the title the entire time. I mean,
don't they just use this so to get out of like...
I mean, you still pay full price, right? Like, so I understand if the preview's free or cheap, like that'd be great. I'm willing to experiment, but to put it out there at the full price and then have that kind of poor performance. But also, what happened to Google? That for a while there, they were just seriously outputting like production quality models that were brilliant. And remember, they were doing a new tune every week or something. Like, we'd come on the pod and you're like, oh, it's Gemini 2.5 Flash tune, whatever, tune this, image variation, multi-model variation. And then that all sort of stopped. And now it's just like, well, we've put out a preview for 6 months and it just failed.
But do you know why I think the models are the way they are? Because they clearly over-engineered Gemini-3 to work for their search snippets and their products. So, like, I think the model you're consuming really is to just generate really efficient search snippets with more intelligence. And if you think about a lot of the applications and implementations of the Google models in their own products, they're all one-shot. And anything where you have to go turn by turn and with tool calling, they're absolutely shockingly bad at. Like, and even in their own products, they're shockingly bad at. So I think they've just probably over-architected for like single shot, fast inference with intelligence, with big context, like for search, as opposed to a sort of future agentic model. So I'm sure they're like red alert right now going after an agentic model. There's no way they wouldn't be.
Yeah, I was about to say that's actually a major problem, because what we've both discovered throughout the last few weeks is how much the models can do with tiny amounts of context if put in the right kind of agentic loop. And so for so long, I always thought the trend was we need 1 million contexts, we need 2 million contexts, and you just shove everything in there, hope it gets a bit cheaper, and let the model think for a while and figure it out. But what we're discovering is that small loops with really high quality tool calls and structures of tool calls. Like, so for example, sub-agents that will go off and research a part of the task with specific skill prompts to gather that piece of the context. But, tiny prompts, this is a 2,000 token prompt with, say, 2,000 tokens of context. It might loop 2 or 3 times and get back to the main thread. So it hasn't used that many tokens, but the value to the overall task that you're trying to accomplish is big. That is working so much better than going, I'm just going to read in all the files and chuck them in Gemini in one massive prompt and then get the final answer. So I think that the models that are tuned for this looping, and we see it, a great example of that is GLM5, which basically performs better than Gemini does in an agentic mode.
Way better.
By a long way, because it can work in this style. And so I think that that's the existential crisis for Google. Like you say, maybe that's not their goal and they don't even care. But if they are trying to compete on this level, they need at least a variant tune that is designed for this workflow that everyone's moving to. And I mean, people really are moving to it. It's not like it's just us. Like, you've got Claude Code, OpenClaw, all this stuff working in that style. So Gemini is simply just not going to be able to compete on that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think you've got Facebook's acquisition of Menace because they saw this coming, or at least are playing catch up as well. All of these companies are just either acquiring or starting to focus on these agentic loops and agent use cases now. And I think for whatever reason, they started to become viable. And I think Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.5 showed that all of a sudden they worked late last year. And then everyone was like, hang on, including us, like, oh, it works now. Whereas before, like, we kind of paused a lot of our agentic loop work because every time we did it, it was so bad. We were like, there's just no point to this at all right now. Like, until the models improve, like, this is not shippable in its current form. But I don't know. It seems like, like Google are really going to have to do something here because all of those launches and all that hype just turned into complaints from the community. That anti-gravity product has just been an absolute disaster. But
it's almost like they stopped caring, because remember before they were like seeking feedback and like trying to get involved and they really cared what everyone thinks. Now they're just like, whatevs, guys, we don't really care.
Yeah, and I don't really understand, unless they've got some agentic loop model internally that they're just holding back for release until some big launch event. And so they're using that internally and they just don't care. They're like, oh, well, we're fine. We're so far ahead again.
I would be like that.
Yeah, like, well, we kind of are like it with Sim Theory V2 now. Like, we're living in this agentic world, teasing people, not intentionally trying to finish it off, but we're similar in like, we don't care about all these other things because we feel like, we've got something. And so maybe Google is in the same position now. But even the problem is 3.1 Pro, people are saying on X, like, here's some comments I pulled from research, completely unusable with endless loops, coding failures, 10 times slower speeds, asking why Google even released it, failed migrations, destructive Git suggestions after 40 minutes of looping, and poor prototyping. I asked it to find positive reflections, and basically there's none.
The positive is you'll spend more time in the real world because you won't be able to work anymore.
Yeah. But isn't it funny how and people often point to that meme about the loop of model releases. And I think right now you've got the new Codex and the new Anthropic models dominating, right? It's like the battle is between those two. But just how quickly the market changes in the regard of Gemini Agentic might release in a couple of months, and all of a sudden everyone will be over to that thing. There's just zero loyalty to. It's like whoever has the best API, I guess, wins. Still, it really is. It's the model stupid. A lot of the software around it's so commoditized and easy to reproduce. It's just irrelevant.
Yeah, and it's just Opus 4.6 is just the unequivocal god of models at the moment. It physically hurts me to use it all day. I'm like, I don't even want to know how much this is costing when I'm blasting through agentic loops and I got 5 of them going and all this sort of stuff. And as I said, we've been optimizing around tighter loops using less tokens. So it's part of what we're doing. But the thing about it is it's just so reliable and it's so good. You can set it off in its merry way and you're pretty confident it's going to get there in the end. Occasionally, yeah. And I don't know if this is our fault with the agentic sim theory or it's the model itself. Every now and then it'll get a bit second guessy with itself and maybe take a bit longer to get there. But more often than not, you check back in when the task is complete and it's done, and it's done it correctly. It's just remarkable how good it is. And I've given Sonnet 4.6 a very good run during the week, and it's almost as good, right? Like it really, most of the time is as good. But if you want pure reliability and confidence in your model, Opus 4.6 is just the boss. There is just no comparison in terms of the model. So if any model provider is going to compete with it, they're going to have to come out with something that makes it, look no good. Or
well,
just be
I think
cheaper.
a lot of people are saying Codex 5.3 is better. The problem is in our agentic loop in the world we're living in, because there's no API, we haven't thoroughly tested it in our context. And I think that's how we generally can gauge how good a model is. I have downloaded the Codex app and have been doing some tasks in it, but I don't know. I just haven't seen it yet. Like it's not any better. The price is definitely a consideration for me. Like if we can get it through the API and it's as cheap as like the Codex 5.2 max stuff, then all of a sudden it's like totally, it would be my go-to model, like no doubt, because I believe it's roughly on par. I just think for a lot of the tasks I work on, I still at the moment, like side-by-side comparison, even in a planning context, I do prefer Opus right now. But yeah, it's really a two-horse race at the moment. And outside of that, like as you say, GLM and I think Haiku can be used for pretty like,
Haiku,
those grunt tasks are fine. It's fine.
Like context discovery tasks, research tasks, searching tasks, basic coding tasks. Haiku is completely competent. And in terms of its looping, it's really good. As some people had been saying on our Discord throughout the week, the one thing Haiku will do is almost like try and get out of work by stalling with questions. Like it's almost like a task you do, like something you do in the real workplace. I've heard the expression bike shedding before, where to sort of like make a meeting go on with irrelevant crap, you'll discuss some topic that everyone wants to talk about, right? And distract them with questions. And so I think Haiku does a little bit of that. GLM5 doesn't. It's kind of well balanced. It really actually gets the job done. And if I was looking for a economical way to do mass agentic work, or like for example self-hosting a model for my organization, I would straight up go GLM5, mass produce it. You're not going to really notice much downside compared to the other models.
Don't you find it funny? Like Anthropic accused these labs during the week, like Kimi K2 and GLM and like all the ones training on their outputs, and had, I think, pretty definitive proof. And everyone roasted them because they're like, you trained on all of our data and the entire web and copyrighted data, and called them out for it and said, so what? Like, why can't they train on your thing? But I got to say, they're sort of doing everyone a service because they're taking all the elements of this model and then making it open source. And so what if they're training on the weights? I kind of think it's a good thing.
I just want the best models. I don't care how they do it. So yeah. That's fantastic. And I mean, it's a great endorsement for it. If Anthropic's actually got their backup and they're a bit worried about it, isn't that like the most glowing review you can possibly give to this model?
Yeah, so
like it's actually a threat to us.
It's the one to copy. But I guess that's what I'm saying is like outside of Codex and Anthropic models right now, you sort of know whoever China's training on is the best model at a given time, right? Like that should be the benchmark. Who is China consuming? Which Chinese labs are training on the outputs of what model should be the benchmark? Like how much throughput?
Yeah, and I think there's more to be said for, and I know I keep going on about this every week, but it's just so in my head in terms of what I'm working on. But I think what we need is these cheaper models for regular agentic tasks. So something that came up yesterday in a conversation I was having was, imagine you've got an organization with 20,000 people in it, right? And they want to set up recurring agentic tasks. For example, give me my daily plan that goes through your calendars, your emails, your appointments, and maybe some other company resources to get you situated. If 20,000 people do that like all at once on your system, how's it going to cope? How much is that going to cost
Also
on like an organized?
Yeah.
on an organizational level. And then the other thing is duplicated work. What if everyone, like you currently are sending me like daily reports of something on an automated basis, right? And I'm like, but imagine if like 5,000 different people did that or equivalent every day. Like that's really going to add up. So these models, the smaller models like GLM-5, just to be specific, could do the exact same job on an automated basis. And because it is a recurring thing, you could even optimize the prompting around it to make sure that model can do it. And it's a totally different proposition where, okay, maybe if you use the top line model, it costs $1 a day. But if you use GLM-5, it costs 10 cents a day. Like that kind of thing is going to add up.
So right now with the automatic switcher in the sort of traditional chat mode in Sim Theory, and I'm just explaining how this works more. Like this isn't some sort of promotion. I'm just saying
it sounds like a promotion, Mike.
But it front runs the query, so it front runs it with a fast model and says, "Hey, what kind?" It just applies like a label to the query, and then it picks the best model based on the labeling, right? And it's so fast you don't even notice. Like it's finally so fast and intelligent enough. It works pretty good. The problem with that in Agentic is certain pieces of the Agentic loop, right? You really need to keep considering, like, am I on the right model? You can't just like stick on the same model. And I found this when I was enhancing the Symlink for browser plugin, right? I was trying to drive down cost dramatically so that you could do browser tasks and it wouldn't send you broke, and also have it super fast and make it super reliable for common use cases, right? And that is hard. Like it is a lot of like the code is not hard because these models can do it now. It's just the QA and testing different use cases that is quite frankly very tiring. So what I landed on was the model after a few iterations of doing something. If it gets stuck, like we detect it's stuck, it phones home. So it'll be like, oh, I need a better model now. I need a smarter model. And it goes up the stack of smarter models until it can figure out the problem. Now, if it can't figure out after a certain point, it completely aborts and then reevaluates. Like, am I just going in a dumb direction? Now, I was able to get for a pretty complex like scraping of data in an app I won't mention because it's a bit sensitive, but scraping data out of a particular app, which is a real use case someone has, and a use case I was doing to test with, was costing $2.79 to scrape this data, which honestly for this use case, you probably wouldn't care that much. $2.79, I got it down to less than 30 cents. So back in the day, like the cost of an SMS, I think about 26 cents. And that was all through this optimization in the loop of deciding which model to use. So I kind of think that one challenge for us or everyone in general is truly getting to that automated mode where you're able to go to a GLM, go to this and route, and then update that routing logic over time. So you're just driving down the price.
Yeah, and almost like, and I know that we've done this, so I know why, but the like having a strategy around that. Like I want to use this model in these scenarios, this model in these scenarios, and then having the system do a process similar to what you've described. My only fear is that whole you don't know what you don't know thing. It's like if you're asking like, you know, a really dumb guy, how's it going? Like, do you reckon you're going to solve this task? Like, yeah, mate, all good. Yeah, well, no worries. But it's actually doing something like idiotic, like, you know, ladder is up against the wrong wall kind of thing. So that's the only downside. So I think like some sort of supervisory smart model every now and then checking in is probably the way to go.
Can, like, even in my experimentation with the smart model checking in type nonsense, the ladder can still be up against the wrong wall. Like even Opus, very late last night for me, was getting stuck on a problem. And it took, like, because I was tired, it took me a while to realize, I'm like, it's not even working with the right file. Like, it's completely misinterpreted the task.
Yeah.
And even though I told it what the file was at the start, it just is like, nah, basically, like I looked at its internal thinking too, thinking, oh, is it something we've done? No, it's truly just gone, nah, the user's an idiot. The ladder's up against the wrong wall. It should be this file. And I'm like, no, I'm telling you, you stupid. And I had to literally resort to absolute abuse to convince it that it was indeed this file. And so they all still suffer from that gullibility. It's just at different levels.
It's so funny you say that, because the thing that caused me to rage quit last night when I was working was I'm working on optimizing sub-agents to like keep them really tight but do the right thing. And I had asked it to look at like a fairly easy task, and I had actually specifically mentioned the files that I wanted it to reference. You know what it did? It searched Google 8 times for stuff. And I'm like, how did you think this was a good decision? Like, how is Google going to help you work on my local files? And it was searching for the files on Google. It wasn't even searching for like reference materials or something like that. You also actually gave me a funny story. So, about the whole like being nice to models, because I routinely abuse my models when they make a mistake. Like I call it dumb. Like I'm sort of like, I guess like an abusive partner kind of thing with the model, like where it'll like be serving me so loyally. And then I'll just be like, you should know better than this. Like you've done an awful job. So my wife's been using the Agentic loop, right? But she has the policy of always being super nice to it. So I got home yesterday and then suddenly I hear from her laptop, Nicole, can you please take a look at this? I need your help. And then I heard, Nicole, your task is complete. And I was like, what in the world? Like she's using Sim Theory. We don't have that capability. There's no like voice notifications. Just she had basically said to it, you need to find a way to tell me when you're finished tasks or when you need input, because I'm walking around the house and I want to know when I'm needed. So what it had done is realized through the shell on a Mac, it can use the say command that uses a built-in text-to-speech model to talk to her. So the models have literally found a way that they can actually like have a side channel communication to orchestrate the agentic loop. Just remarkable.
Yeah, the capabilities of these things is nuts. And I think I was on the phone to you last night at one point, and we were talking about like what happens now that anyone can kind of do this, and anyone can build this stuff. And like moving forward, like right now, I think most people can, if they have the willpower, get things to about 95%. I do think that last 5%, people with experience and people that can develop and write code and understand code still have a huge advantage, like that they underestimate. I think they get excited because it's now really easy for them, but there's still so many things, like so much accumulated knowledge that you need to actually like deploy a project in a production and serve it. And there's still a lot of work there in my opinion, but I think over time, a lot of that stuff will be patched in too. So then you sort of come to this realization, like, what does this mean for the world when the cost of legal documents, for example, is zero? What does it mean when the cost of software goes to zero? Well, not zero, but like, you know, maybe 10 to 20x cheaper, right? Yeah. And I think that the way I sort of look at it now is you look at YouTube, right? Like everyone can record videos. But then you get a standout, like say a Mr. Beast, that is just so much bigger than anyone else and takes it further and further. So I think that while, the cost comes down, it doesn't really change the market dynamics. You've still got to want to build something and persist with it and have taste and have agency to get it done and hire people to do it. Like I don't think it's as it's something I think we'll just get used to. Like once everyone has a hammer. Right?
Let's say I had like an ultrasound machine. I could probably build like ultrasound software now. Like I could literally make software that shows it on the screen and does an analysis. But I would literally have no idea what features are required, if it's right or not, or like what is an actual pain point for a person who runs an ultrasound machine, right? So like, yes, technically you could make it and try and like undercut the existing incumbent, which I'm sure charges a lot, but you would be completely flying blind as to whether the software even does what they want, right?
Yeah, so there's no way you're going to actually do it in reality. And I think that's what a lot of companies are coming out now and saying. Like, I think Atlassian came out during the week. Mike Cannon-Brookes came out and said, like, people aren't just going to replace their enterprise software. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, might be disruption, like other software companies that are more AI centric and AI first, and people fail to adapt, and then that causes a disruption. But I think it's highly like, who wants to go and build their own, like, especially if you have something like Jira or like GitHub or like Figma or like any of these apps that are getting targeted on the public market right now and getting like annihilated in terms of valuation. Like, who really wants to go and build that, or who cares? Like, you don't, like, you're doing your thing. You want to focus on that thing. Like, I'm not entirely sure that's going to change much, but I do think that as the AI workspaces become the centerpiece for how people are productive and work with AI agents and things like that, what will happen is the companies that don't embrace like MCPs and open standards and allow agents to interact with their SaaS products, you're going to churn from them and adopt solutions that do. And so I think that's actually the biggest risk right now, is just not embracing the tech.
Yeah, exactly. People, I mean, I know this because we're trying to do it, is like people are just going to bypass the ones who block you and find a way with browser use and other ways to actually get at the data anyway, and then ultimately move when they can to something better that's actually embracing this thing. Just on that point though, about like, you know, anyone being able to create software, something we've experienced many times is hiring, say, new developers to a team, and they come in and they're like, oh, all the way your software is done is wrong. We need to rewrite it. And I'm ashamed to say that a few times in my career, I've said, they're right. We need to rewrite the whole thing. And then what you discover is there's something about a working system that over the years has accumulated like IP and knowledge and experience in all the little changes you make over time that seems so simple when you look at them on the surface. But then when you actually try to recreate something, you have to rediscover all of those things. And I think that's why you're not going to see someone just come out and vibe code Salesforce and just take it over, because they're missing all of those little things that have accumulated over time. They're missing the relationships and also just simply the distribution. Like, I actually think a lot of what is going to lead to future success in software as a service is having an audience, is having the people who are willing to try your AI generated thing over something else, because they're not just going to switch in like normal market conditions.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt it'll drive prices of subscriptions down because it's harder to justify if the subscription is more than the cost of having some internal team, especially in the enterprise, like maintain some like proprietary software. But I just don't think it's like as a biblical event as people are trying to make out. Like, and I'm not saying that as like some copium thing. I'm just trying to like reason my way through it. So you look at it. So Anthropic announced a bunch of open source plugins for, I think, Cowork or just, you know, their app or whatever. And like for those people who are unaware, these are just skills. They're markdown files describing a process. They're a prompt in a markdown file with a fancy name. That's all it is. It's like you saved a prompt to a markdown file, and all they did was probably vibe coded a bunch of financial and legal processes and financial services processes into markdown files and quietly release them as plugins or skills, whatever you want to call them, targeting these areas like legal, sales, marketing, finance, data analysis, all the different workflows. Now, I've read them. They're really not that complex, and you would be far better if you were a legal firm or a doctor or like whatever profession you are to sit and just chat to the AI agent and say, hey, like, here's my processes, describe it, get it to ask a bunch of questions. And when it's done, say, okay, now write a markdown file documenting my process, right? Like, that's what the smart money will do, because you have your own unique approach and yada, yada. But they're good templates. But anyway, that led to a market sell-off, some sort of like fear porn blog post about how every white collar job and knowledge work is going to be wiped out, et cetera, et cetera. And that just like has tanked valuations of different companies. And I don't know if it's because I work with it every day, but I find it extremely laughable. Like, for example, legal documents. What, 2 years ago now, maybe 3, you could already write better contracts and analyze contracts better than a lawyer. Like, that ship sailed. But is anyone actually doing it in reality? No, because you need to sue your lawyer if they get something wrong. And I think for small businesses, it's great because it's empowering in the sense that they can now do more legal work or get legal analysis where they
or
couldn't
negotiate.
afford it.
Like I heard someone the other day, they're like, oh, I have to pay my lawyer $12,000 to draft this document, but I just know they're going to draft it with AI. Like, and so should I ask for a discount, being like, you're just not going to put in, like, yes, I understand you've got insurance and I understand that you're signing off on it and whatever, but it's going to take you less hours now. So can we negotiate a better price? Like, so, that may drive prices down.
I think it's going to, like, I agree. It's going to be very deflationary. Like, to me, it'll drive prices well and truly down. But, you know, there's that whole paradox of, like, if you drive the price down of something, people just end up consuming more. And I don't know when if you apply that to legal stuff, like a lot of that work where you're driving the price down and it's not that important, do you think in those cases anyway, like it would be, because, okay, look at conveyancing.
No one's going like, oh, these legal documents are so cheap, I might just get a few extras just for my personal
I might
use.
just sue people randomly for the fun of it. But I guess my point is, look at conveyancing in Australia, right? Highly regulated process. You need, like, they have all these regulations and systems and stupid protocols where the legislation is such that it revolves around humans. Like, there's no way, like, sure, it can make it easier for the lawyers involved and make it quicker for them. But it's not something I can get my AI agent, like, oh, just like exchange a property for me right now. So to me, like, yeah, it's deflationary for the law firm in that case, but it's not yet necessarily deflationary for me, because are they really going to drop their price when they have a stronghold on legislation now? Like, this is the last moat, really, for a lot of these things.
We need AI to form its own governments and laws. That'll be the true, shift.
Yeah, I mean, but if you really want efficiency in society and to get more done faster, the one way I think to get ahead if you're a country right now is to just deregulate this stuff. Say, like, I'm sorry, conveyancers, find a new job, because, like, we're just going to allow AIs to do this stuff now.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
But I mean, those people go and do more high-level jobs, like more important things. I don't think these people enjoy doing these things. Like, it'd be awful work. Like,
it's depressing. Speaking of jobs, you probably saw like the massive layoffs during the week. You mentioned one to me, the Square company, or what's it called now?
That happened only a couple of hours ago.
Bounce, what's it called? Box.
Or is it Box? No, not Box.
It's some Cube. Sort of single keyword. Cube?
No, it's not Cube. What? I don't know what it is now.
Anyway, the company formerly known as Square laid off like 3,000 people or something, claiming
Brick?
AI.
Is it Brick?
But I don't know. It's something that's like has four sides. They may or may not be equal in the name. But anyway, in Australia, there's a company called WiseTech, and they have like basically logistics software for cargo, right? And anyway, I didn't know they had this many employees, but in the article I read about it, it made a really interesting point, because they lay off the people saying, well, AI is so much more efficient now. We don't need all these employees. Like, what a waste of time. We'll just make our existing people more efficient. But then what it does is it draws the market attention to the fact that, oh my God, all of their software is ripe for disruption by AI. So on one hand, they're like, look how much more efficient we are. We're going to save all this money not paying these people. But then the actual reaction of the stock price is a huge drop, because everyone's like, hang on a sec, but you're primed. Like, what makes you think you're going to leverage AI better than everyone else? Like, you're just as much a victim of this as those employees are, or anyone else is. So it's like this really interesting time for these companies. And you sort of wonder, are they using the cover of AI as an excuse to just cut their bottom line? Because that's what I would do. Or are they actually truly believing they can make them more efficient? Because there's no way in such a short period of time they would have enough metrics to know, oh, these 2,000 people are just not needed because of these advancements.
The company's called Block, by the way. They laid off 4,000 people, almost half the company. I think it's like 45% of it.
That is a lot. Like, think of the kind of room you would need to fit 4,000 people.
But come on, this is Jack Dorsey, the Twitter guy. I mean, Elon Musk proved this guy runs bloated, stupid companies. Like, he laid off, like 70% of the former employees under Jack Dorsey, and it's fine. Like, it's fine. There's nothing has changed except the brand. And so I'm not sure that, I don't think this is AI. Like, even using it right now, I'm thinking, well, how do you just lay off half of your starve unless you're horrendously bloated and doing it for economic reasons.
It probably is a good decision, but the reason isn't AI.
They just say AI thinking the market will respond positively instead of negative. Like if you're invested in a company and they lay off half their people under any other circumstances outside of AI, you're like, this company is in like a lot of...
And then, the whole announcement is saying how great everything's going.
Yeah.
We're absolutely killing it. That's why we don't need all of these people anymore.
Guys, we're crushing it, but you're all laid off. Like, it doesn't make sense.
It's like, I want all that money for myself, not for you guys.
I think right now, just to calm people's nerves, just to be a voice of reason here, like, yes, it's disruptive, but I don't think all of these theories about, the end is nigh, despite earlier in the year me being in some sort of AI psychosis, is real, because yet again, if you just embrace these tools like the agentic loops and the turn by turn with tool calling stuff, and you play around with all the latest models, like we've been saying for a long time, you realize, yes, they are huge productivity gains, and yes, you can be way more efficient in tasks if you know how to use them correctly. But we are still so far away, in my opinion, from the complexity of replacing like all knowledge workers in industries that it's just laughable to me. Like, I just don't see any of these companies outside of being disrupted by AI first companies that come along and compete with them, any other vector of threat. It's not like companies are going to go vibe code a Square terminal or whatever he sells.
Because that's not what they're providing. They're providing all the banking relationships and the regulations and the money transfers and stuff, right? It's not the software.
Yeah, it's so short-sighted to think that software software is the business. A lot of these software companies, the software is just a means to an end to deliver a service. Like, it's not... Yeah. Anyway, I think the markets yet again are nuts, and there's just so much fear porn out there, and the fear porn sells. So, all right. Thanks for listening. We will see you again next week. Also, if you are still listening at this point, I put the wrong link in for our event last week. Lol. So there's an updated one below.
To even out the averages.
Yeah, I actually vibe coded the description and it put in a made up link. So there you go. All right, we'll see you next week. Goodbye.